Welcome to Israeli Bytes, where Ronit and I explore the overlooked, overheard, and underthought corners of Israeli life. No headlines, no scripts, just real voices, unexpected juxtapositions, and the stories behind the noise. Well, Ronit, this week there are lots of stories. Just to recap, um, you and I spoke right before Israeli Memorial Independence Day, and we didn't have the chance to talk about, well, what would happen later, which is this giant fire that destroyed 2,900 acres of Israeli land. One of the national parks that I go to all the time with my kids and grandkids, Park Canada, was completely destroyed. Um, of course, the international news had almost nothing to say about it. I told my family they had not heard about it. So that was last week. And yesterday, I'm sure I'm skipping a lot of stuff as well, but yesterday, a missile hit Ben Gurion Airport. Can we imagine for a second if, a missile hit JFK or Heathrow? You would be like, all of a sudden, nobody would care about, oh, but the Palestinians are suffering. They would be like, let's take, I mean, it's unfathomable, really. Our international airport was hit by a missile. And that was yesterday. I don't know, Rina. I'm sure I'm even missing stuff. Like, how are we surviving all of this?
Um, yeah, I think the mood lately has kind of a bit shifted. I would say that it shifted a bit. Just as, like you said, Independence Day for me was, I don't, it was the worst Independence Day that I think I've ever had.
Mhm.
Everybody was just so depressed, and the fires just were, I mean, we felt like it was intentional. I don't think they found a cause yet, but it felt as if it was intentional because of the symbolic, the day the day we're supposed to be happy we're alive and we exist.
But Ronit, I just want to interrupt for a second. I mean, you don't seem to me the kind of person who goes out and makes a barbecue on
Well, actually, I do.
well, just I mean, it really is a kind of a national ritual, the mangal on Yom Ha'atzmaut. And I think one of the nice things on the actual Independence Day that you smelt the smoke of the barbecues, at least in Jerusalem, and not the smoke of the fire from the previous day. But so you do make a barbecue usually?
Yeah, I mean it's a tradition. I mean, we don't go outside to the park because that would be insane. The parks are usually just packed and people just go like really early in the morning to get a good spot, and
You
I
don't do
don't do
that.
that. I don't do that. I don't stand in lines. I don't. So, I mean, we usually just do it, somewhere like at a friend's house or my parents' house or whatever. But I mean, this year I mean, lots of places were closed, so you couldn't, lots of parks were closed because all the firefighters just had, they had something big to take care of. So you couldn't, go to a park and just have alaysh, which is what we usually do, the barbecue. So, but I don't even think it's about that. Yes, it is a tradition. Yes, it is an Israeli tradition. And it's just like almost kind of unwinding after Memorial Day. I think the day itself, and I don't think many people were complaining that, that there weren't places to do alaysh. I think it's just this atmosphere of, I mean, of doomsday, definitely that day, the smoke, it's like existential, it's just threat constantly. So that's another thing and another thing and
It's
another
also
thing.
it's also being televised live, right?
It was televised. I caught myself constantly checking to see if the fire was going to advance towards Sylvia, which I knew that it wasn't, but still I was fearful. And I just didn't feel, nobody was in the mood. Like we weren't, I mean, they canceled yesterday's the celebrations of Independence Day. Usually they go on the night before, and then the day after people do barbecues. They have barbecues and stuff. And they just canceled the celebrations before because of the weather, but also because we're just not in the mood. It was supposed to be subdued anyway because again, there's hostages and stuff. So it's just, I don't know. Everybody that was in Israel felt it. It's like you can't escape. It's such a small country. People don't understand. If something happens in New Jersey, so people in Florida don't really, their mood isn't adjusted accordingly. But in Israel, and it's like it's half an hour away from Jerusalem. It's no big deal. Tel Aviv is, I mean, that's it. It's like 45-minute drive.
Mm.
So people don't realize that. So yeah, we're depressed. Okay. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
I
that.
mean, I mean, I heard a lot of people talking about, the resilience of Israelis and the unit. Is this, are you talking about unity actually, Ronit? That we're all depressed? Is that how we achieve national unity?
Um, Nobody's talking about unity. I think unity is it's a slogan, and maybe this is just me today talking because there's so many things happening. But yeah, we are. I mean, I guess Israel is just, it depends on the day that you meet us. I mean, this week we're just like, after the missile, we're like, what unity? We've had it with unity. We just want to exist. But next week I'll just bounce back to just being okay, yes, resilience, the economy is doing okay, even though we're being boycotted, blah, 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 blah. But right now it's just I mean, if you look at it from our standpoint of view, it's just, I mean, it's yes, unity. We needed to just kind of move on, but I think it's being drilled to us from the people up above, just so we
So we
won't complain.
resent it. So we resent it.
So we resent it. Don't tell me about unity. We're living it, but don't give me that. Someone
But
said
I think
double
that's the
fight.
source of the real unity is that we are living it. And when people when outsiders talk to us about unity or resilience, it's like, yeah, that's true, but don't turn it into a slogan because once you turn it into a slogan, it undermines our experience, and our experiences are all so different. And I think maybe it's the acknowledgement, the achievement of vulnerability, which allows for unity. And that's kind of, I think, the only optimism that we find is that people, I walked into the office today and the staff at WeWork, we're all you don't, the conversation has already started before you get there, which is what is going on? I mean, the young woman at WeWork this morning said to me, it's raining, right? Because it's raining in Jerusalem. It's raining. It never rains in May, but it's raining. And her saying that was not just talking about the weather. It was like this also.
What else? We're waiting for the what else. I mean, it's just constant, constant, constant. Sometimes it gets to us, and sometimes we just kind of shrug it off and say, okay, that's our lot. That's what, so we'll just continue. I think the past week was very hard because of what happened with the fires, because it was Memorial Day, obviously. It's a day. And I think I read somewhere where people saying every day in Israel is Memorial Day and every day in Israel is Independence Day, where, they're intertwined, but they're also just, they exist every day because unfortunately, soldiers, are being killed. So it's just, and so you remember them. And then, you get to know their names and you get to know their families because that's what happens in Israel. It's very, everything becomes very personal. It's such a small country.
I
And then
mean,
you
I mean,
also keep
I
thinking
keep
about, like you said, about the whole idea of unity, which is being drilled to us in resilience every day. So that's part of Independence Day, where we're saying, okay, thank God we have a country, because if we didn't, we'll be, it's just sometimes it just weighs really heavily on everyone, and sometimes we manage to just soldier on.
no, it's interesting because
Pardon my pun.
the headlines yesterday, of course, were of the missile at Ben Gurion, but also two of our soldiers were killed. And that's something that only Israelis can understand, or people who come to Israel, who connect with Israel, that in a way, those two kids getting killed is much worse than what happened at Ben Gurion. I mean, in terms of, this, what you're talking about, is it family? Is it tribal? It's like we all connect to these kids.
It is because we're a very tiny, 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 tiny country.
Mm.
So I mean, so that's a given. But it's also, it's almost like we're a big giant kibbutz in a way. And we all know people who are either in Gaza or came out of Gaza. who are going to go in Gaza. Unfortunately, it's never ending. The cycle right now. And the thing is, we also don't see how it will end or when it will end. We need some sort of hope. I mean,
And
every
you're not even mentioning the hostages, which of course are on our minds all the time. And I don't know, I go to the train station, to Hashalom in Tel Aviv, and this is probably true of every Tel Aviv station, but all over the station are plastered these pictures of hostages, all over. And I have to admit, sometimes or if I get off the train and I see a hostage, it's too hard to deal with. It's like in a way, you're just saying, I don't want this now. And I'm probably not the only one who feels like this. It's overwhelming. I mean, of course, we understand why these posters are there, but existentially, on a day-to-day level, it's always there.
like I said, it's again having that every day being a Memorial Day.
Mm,
I think as a nation, we need these constant reminders because we have to always remind ourselves what is the objective of what's
mm,
happening now.
mm,
Um, so those, and you can't either, even my 9-year-olds, she knows some of their names, she knows, and I try to protect her. I really try to shield her. She doesn't watch the news. She doesn't need this. I mean, she's so well adapted to the sirens, that like yesterday, we had a siren that with the missile to Ben Gurion, and my daughter wasn't with me, and then I asked her how it was, and she was just like, the question was stupid to her. She was just like, oh, when put my Crocs, went to the miklat, and it was, and I just kind of felt, so it's like that's her reality. Like, she's gonna grow up with these suppressed fears, and I mean, I'm hoping that it will do her good and she'll be resilient, and she'll know how to overcome, and she won't succumb to, like, I don't know, like, bad things that happen in her life because she's going through this. But it still is like, I don't, why does she get to grow up like this?
I mean, listen, I would look at it much more positively that she's created coping mechanisms. And also, the reason she's able to create those coping mechanisms is because she trusts you and your husband so much. So that allows her to do that coping mechanism, I think, almost as a protocol.
It's funny because I remember right after October 7th, and my husband was away because he was away at South Africa for a job. So he flew October 1st. So he missed the whole first month of what
Wow.
was happening. And there were constant sirens and constant. And we used to go to and then at one time I remember just shaking because I couldn't handle it anymore. And, I remember Lily, my youngest, she just looked at me and she was like, Mommy, what's going on? And then I was like, shit, I have to pull myself together. Like, she can't see me like this.
Mm.
So, and from that point, I just made it, I mean, it's not fun going to the miklat. It's not like, we dance to the miklat, but to a Madonna song, but it's very calm. It's a ritualistic kind of thing. The shoes are next to the door. You go, da da da, and then you listen to the booms and you try to see if the booms are, close to you, and then you go outside and I WhatsApp my parents and tell them we're okay. It's just like this whole thing that she is very aware of. Is it a great coping mechanism?
So this
I,
this October 1st, so when your husband away, so on October 7th, that's why you were counting your knives in the kitchen.
yeah, it's like I was counting my buckets for the fire. Yeah, yeah. That is, and we all, I mean, I laugh because it's again, it's the coping mechanism, but we all have our October 7th story. We all
We,
carry that with
we,
us.
we,
And I
we never really talked about this, that, um, we started writing on the wall, while you were basically alone with your kids.
Right. You know, it sounds dramatic. It wasn't that. I mean, the whole situation was dramatic. That specific thing was, I mean, Yeah,
You
it
sound like
was.
you sound like your daughter right now. It wasn't that dramatic, right?
I mean, it was the whole situation was really, really bad. But okay, so my husband wasn't here. People had far worse things. So it's always relative in life. It's just, I mean, I think in a way I have flashbacks because I'm very tempted to go back and look at the WhatsApp that I sent, like me and my family, just to see what was going on. But I always stop myself because I'm like, maybe that's what I need to do to try to push that out. Because I do have flashes of
Hmm.
bewilderment and then panic and then just almost despair. And so do I want to go back to revisit those? No. I think writing on the wall, if people look back, they will see, you can tell how close some of the pieces are to October 7th with,
Hmm.
with the undertones of them. But it's just so it's part of us now. It's almost
I
like
mean, I
it's
think about
our
after
DNA.
October 7th that we really were without resources. I mean, the surprise of war was we're the same person who we were 10 minutes ago, but now we are in a totally different situation without any resources whatsoever to deal with it. And I'm sure if I look back at my WhatsApps, it would have been, full of crazy ideas about what to do or how to help people, whatever, which were well-intentioned, but just dumb.
I don't think I will. I wonder when I will have courage to actually look back and just see what was going on there. I mean, it's just it's almost like an historical kind of it's a part of my life that has really affected who I am now. So it will be interesting for my therapist to maybe just kind of look over them. But um yeah, everything is shaped from that. And I think that's why the mood right now is also very dire because just we're still there almost.
I mean,
None of us really bounced back. I don't think we have.
but let me just, finally, you, we just put out this humor issue. Can't you find something to laugh about?
Um, we always do. I mean, that's the thing though. It's always there's always an undertone of dark humor floating there, just for us to just not completely um go black and just kind of have nothing. There has to be layers. So, I mean, we do cope with this. And I think that's what humor was really, really important. I remember we were talking about how some of the hostages that came back, I especially remember Yeldin, Bibas, and when his dad was like, 5 minutes after he met him, I remember the headline going, he still has, Yeldin went through a lot, but he still has this humor. So, there's
After
hope.
just to remind ourselves, after he lost his two children and his wife,
Yes.
the
So
Davis
there's
family.
so that particular bit is so it's it's it says so much that it said so much that his dark humor, his humor is something that was part of him is still there. It's like we haven't lost our
Mm,
humanity.
mm.
And so humor is part of that. And I think especially for the Jews, where we see the way for us to cope is through humor. I mean, I look at humor much more almost like a surgeon. I like to really, dissect it. So I take care of, that's what I'm interested in.
Mm.
But on just like the surface level, it's almost like okay, we're alive. Then that sense of humor was intact. So I think that's just
Just while we're on the subject, I mean, you have this piece in Balagan on what's it called? It's it features lots of white plastic chairs. Can you just like give us a sense of how this fits into the vision of the whole of Balagan humor, or really just in relationship to what you just said?
well, when I started thinking about what I want to write for the humor issue, um, my brain went to the Israeli white plastic chair that you see everywhere. And if you've ever been to Israel, it's almost like, whereas Aldo, right? Aldo,
Waldo.
Waldo. In Israel, in the Hebrew, it's something completely else. And you just see it like it's like when you're pregnant, you always see just a lot of pregnant women, around you that you don't notice before. So it's just like you see those chairs everywhere. And to me, it's almost I wanted to do, which was very not very easy. Just to kind of say something about the Israeli, what it's like to be an Israeli through the point of view of a chair.
Hmm.
Great. Yes,
One
that
second,
was,
one second. You personify a chair?
I personified a chair, and it's called In a Manner of Sitting.
Hmm.
And to me, it was just a very interesting exercise, to say the least, and just understanding, um, trying to untangle the complexity of what's happening around us.
Because the chair just is soaked with different kinds of meanings. The chair gets, one of the illustrations is a chair getting thrown, right?
Yes,
Right. And
that
there
it's an accessible weapon. Very light. You can use
and they're
it. You
chairs
can,
at memorials. So it's funny because it's not the image that I would point to. It's kind of unexpected, but it really is resonant.
right. I mean, people, I guess, would go to food, which is our next issue. But I think that chair, that unassuming white plastic chair, which actually is a genius invention if you think about it,
Mm.
um, is to me just kind of screamed out Israeli. So, yeah, like you said, fights, shivas, funerals, celebrations, bar mitzvahs, you name it, it's there. I
Mm.
thought it was I thought it was an interesting piece of who we are, and I try to convey that. Um, so, I mean, your piece about, the Shakespearean clown, that to me was just brilliant. How did you come, why did you want to
How
write
did I
about
come up with it? Because you told me to write about
it? Well, we're playing like I didn't, just, we're
it.
believing that like I didn't tell you to
Listen,
write about it.
I ended up writing the piece that I always had wanted to write. And I write about the function of the clown and how important the clown is, the fool, Festi in Twelfth Night, but I focused on Touchstone and As You Like It, because he says no to power in a way. He shows the opposite side, the other side, the permitted fool. And of course, I also wrote about Rosalind, who has a vision of the future. Comedy's always about the future, and Shakespeare's As You Like It is really his most perfect play in that it's so well conceived and contained. And her vision of going to the end, and the end in comedy is marriage, community, social resolution. And she gets there, but the only reason she can is because she has a fool. Because the fool says no to the power that exists in the court at the beginning of the play, a place where ambivalence can't be tolerated, where complexity can't be tolerated. You know, it sounds a little bit sometimes like governments that we know. And the fool comes in and just shows the other side. So, I think, and we talked about how in the intro that we're showing unexpected places and just hearing the stories, Ronit, that you tell of your family, for me, that puts me in a place of understanding, and I hope for our listeners as well. And I think also, when we talk about unity, this is the unity we're talking about, not the unity of everybody coming together with a flag and going rah rah. It's everybody coming together and expressing themselves in different ways. And I think, we talk about this all the time. The reason that Writing on the Wall and Balagan is different is we're not forcing unity. We're enacting it. We're trying to make it happen. So, Ronit, thanks a lot. And we're going to come back next week. Join us again on
Definitely.
Israeli Bites.